She touches the mirror, but the glass is water. Her fingertips ripple across the reflection of a man who does not reach back. His face remains still and watching, as if carved from her own longing. She smiles slightly and calls this tension chemistry, but something ancient inside her already grieves. You did not insult her. You did not abandon her. You simply stepped into your silence and held it, and in that silence, her masks loosen. The maiden grows feral. The mother forgets to nurture. The temptress shivers without an audience. She does not know what she's losing, only that something inside her is unraveling, like a myth that no longer believes itself. You did not push her. You reflected her and left the reflection unfinished. So when she cries, she won't say your name. She'll say the energy changed. She'll say it just felt different. But the truth will hover behind her eyes like a dream she forgot on purpose. If this whisper already knows, you let it echo. Like the mirror, leave your shadow in the comments. Subscribe and stay near the silence. She wanted your gaze, but not your truth. She wanted the mirror, not the eyes behind it. She smiled not to connect, but to test her reflection. And when you didn't respond, when your face remained untouched by her emotional choreography, something inside her trembled. You didn't mock her. You didn't withdraw. You were simply still. And in that stillness, her projected self met silence instead of confirmation. She tried again. A joke, a lilt, a sideways glance filled with suggestion. Each one a thread sent outward, hoping to pull a version of herself into focus, a beautiful woman, a clever one, a woman wanted, but your lack of reaction shattered none of it, and yet confirmed nothing either. It was unbearable, because she wasn't trying to get to know you. She was trying to survive her own myth. You became the sacred mirror and then refused to shimmer. What you did was invisible. You withheld nothing. You gave her space to be real. But what she craved was reflection, not reality. She didn't want to feel seen. She wanted to feel constructed, beautiful in your gaze, powerful in your hunger, necessary in your ache. But you didn't ache, not the way she needed. That is why she cries, not from rejection, not from cruelty, but from ambiguity. A man who disappears is painful. A man who lies is offensive. But a man who sees her calmly, without validation, is intolerable. It pierces a deeper wound than betrayal. It touches the archetypal fear that she is only alive when she is seen. And if you do not reflect her, what remains? A woman without a shape, a self without witness, a gesture without echo. She begins to spiral. Her speech quickens. Her laughter becomes louder, but the sparkle is glass, not light. She begins to name the distance. You've changed, she says, but it's not change that haunts her. It's the stillness. She begins to test. She provokes softness in you, then coldness. She tells you secrets. She withholds them. She waits to see if your eyes follow her when she leaves the room. She will cry one night for no reason, only to watch if you fold toward her or away. She is not manipulating. She is myth-making. She is building the story in which she matters, and you do the unthinkable. You let her build it without contributing. This absence is more devastating than criticism, because criticism confirms her shape. But your silence allows no mirror at all. She cannot see her effect. She cannot know the myth is working. Her nervous system begins to hum in the pitch of uncertainty. The feminine shadow is activated, not the seductress, but the ghost, not the enchantress, but the one abandoned before time. You are not cruel. You are the cathedral with no altar. And so she asks, "What's wrong?" And you say, "Nothing," which is the truth, but it is also unbearable. Because her suffering is not in what you did, it is in what you did not confirm. That she is radiant, that she is chosen, that her feminine energy moves the ocean inside you. You may love her, but you do not need her to exist. And that, to the unintegrated feminine, is death. She was raised to believe in mirrors, the kind made of men's reactions. She learned to measure her reflection by what flickered in the eyes across from her. And now, standing before you, there is no flicker, only stillness, only the deep, unblinking silence of a man who does not orbit her sun. She begins to name your silence as coldness, but the wound is older than you. You are not her father. You are not the boy who forgot her at prom. You are not the lover who vanished after she bloomed. But you resemble them in one terrible way. You are not handing her a shape, and worse, you are letting her see the one she fears she truly has. The woman whose story cannot stir the gods. The woman whose beauty does not interrupt your soul. The woman who might be complete, but unreflected. She'll never say this aloud, because she doesn't know. Not consciously. She'll say, "I just feel like something's off." She'll say, "You used to chase me." She'll say, "I don't feel adored anymore." She won't say, "I need your reaction to know I'm real." And so, her tears come. Not as a weapon, not even as grief, but as water to wash away the unbearable not knowing. The way a child cries when a parent stares through them. It is not about punishment. It is not about logic. It is about the primal wound, "I am here, but do you see me?" And when you do not answer, not because you're cruel, but because you're whole, the answer is her own silence reflected back. The feminine spirit, when undeveloped, cannot hold stillness. It needs shape, outline, echo. But you are offering something else. A mirror that says nothing. A man who remains present, but unchanged. This makes her question if she ever had power at all. You did nothing wrong. You didn't withdraw love. You didn't diminish your presence. You simply did not become the shape she needed to complete herself. And so, she cries. But not from sorrow, from shape loss, from the myth unmirrored, from the self that looked for itself in your eyes and found still water instead. She lays the warmth before you like an offering, the softness in her voice, the slow pour of her presence, the small sacrifices feigned indifference to what she truly craves, patient silence wrapped in a silk smile. Every motion is a seed meant to awaken the primal rhythm in you. She wants to be received, not just touched, but entered symbolically, psychically, completely. And yet, you remain still. You feel her gestures, but do not surrender to them. You feel the pull, but do not descend. Not because you resist, but because you do not need. And that is worse than resistance. Resistance can be seduced. Needlessness is a locked gate without a key. She begins to wilt in increments. She speaks slower now, watching your eyes for dilation. She laughs too brightly at things you haven't said. She touches you, then pulls back, checking, measuring, praying for the sacred ignition that never comes. You are not cruel. You are simply unmoved. She does not understand that her energy is not failing. It is simply meeting something immune to hunger. And that immunity reads like rejection, even when it isn't. Her instincts tell her something ancient the womb has closed. She wanted to awaken the animal in you, not for violence, but for union, for proof that she can still rouse the hunt, the pulse, the ache that makes gods fall to their knees. But instead, she meets your gaze, and finds the sage, the one who watches, the one who sees but does not chase, the one who does not devour. This breaks something inside her, because she is not playing, she is remembering. You are not just a man, you are the sacred masculine that once ravished the feminine under the stars. She wants that echo. She wants to feel taken, not as conquest, but as a return. She is offering Eden, and you will not hark. This is the death of the myth. It is not about the physical. She could lie naked beside you and still ache from the absence, because it is not your body she wants, it is your need. She wants to see your structure tremble under the pressure of her presence. She wants to see you undone, not entirely, but slightly, to prove that her femininity is still potent, still holy, still enough to alter the world around her. But you remain untouched. And in that untouchability, she meets a deeper fear that her womb, metaphorical, emotional, archetypal, is no longer the center of creation, that she is no longer the sun that draws the planets, that her gravity is failing. This is not vanity. This is not control. This is mythos. She was taught, not with words but with mirrors, that the ultimate power of the feminine is to be received, that when she opens, the world opens, that when she surrenders, the man enters not only her body, but her story. But you have not entered. You have not reacted. You have not fallen. She has no map for this, because even rejection gives shape. Even cruelty says you matter enough to resist. But your stillness is not opposition. It is simply presence without submission, without invitation, without hunger. This is the true locked gate, not a man who refuses her, a man who is already whole, and wholeness cannot be seduced. She begins to doubt her essence. If you had punished her, she could repent. If you had desired her, she could bloom. But you have done neither. You have given her no place to root her identity. The womb that opens and creates it withers when creation finds no form. She watches you, waiting for the tremble, the worship, the shift in tone that would say, I am pulled into you. But you remain sovereign. She tries everything she was taught: softness, withdrawal, tears not quite formed, the breaking voice of vulnerability, even the noble silence of pretending not to care. Each one a spell, each one a sacred rite. But the spell does not land, not because it is weak, but because you do not live in the part of the psyche that responds to spells. And this makes her ache, because somewhere in her is a priestess who cannot complete her ritual, a goddess whose temple has no worshippers, a mother whose milk remains untouched. She feels barren in the presence of your completeness. You have ruined her illusions gently. You have undone her power without a single word. She will blame herself. She will whisper, am I not enough? She will rage, why don't you open up? She will confess, I feel invisible. But the truth is none of those things. The truth is that she stood before a mountain and found no echo. And it is the absence of echo, not insult, that breaks the archetype of feminine power. She is meant to nourish, arouse, awaken. When that cycle fails, the womb mourns. She will never speak of this directly. She will weep over vague things, your tone, your distance, your lack of urgency. But behind it all is the grief of a creation energy unused. She is an altar covered in roses, and you did not kneel. But here is the paradox: you may adore her, you may admire her soul, you may find her beautiful beyond reason, but if you do not need her, she will feel abandoned. Because to the unintegrated feminine, love without hunger is invisible. She will say you feel safe, but that safety will slowly become suffocating. She will say you are mature, but that maturity will soon feel like detachment. She will say you are calm, but calm will feel like exile. Because what she truly wanted was to open you, and when she could not, she began to close herself. It will happen slowly. She will smile, but not descend. She will touch, but not offer. She will ache, but pretend not to feel. Because to remain open before a man who does not melt is unbearable. Not because you rejected her, but because you stood still. She did everything the myths told her to do. She softened, she opened, she trusted. But the ritual failed. The seed fell into still earth, and nothing stirred. That is why she cries. Not because you hurt her, because you didn't bloom in response. She mistook your integrity for emptiness, your containment for absence, your wholeness for a closed gate. She did not see that the gate was never locked. It was simply not hers to open. She cannot name this. She will say, it just doesn't feel right. But what she means is my womb remained untouched, not physically, but cosmically. And so she cries, not for what was lost, but for what never stirred. She did not seduce you. She summoned you. She braided her hair like the maidens once did in temples long forgotten. She wore fragrance that carried memory not her own. She arranged the room in patterns she couldn't name, soft lighting, slow music, subtle gestures rehearsed not from vanity, but from blood memory. It wasn't performance. It was offering. But you didn't kneel, not out of pride, not out of refusal, but because you do not kneel to ritual when you are not called by it. And that is what shattered her, not that you didn't want her, but that you wouldn't enter the myth she was weaving, even as it bloomed around you. She needed you to be taken spiritually, emotionally, archetypically, not by lust, but by reverence. Not because she needs to be worshipped, but because she has been building altars in the dark since girlhood, waiting for a man who could stand inside the fire she learned to light. But you stood beside it, warm and unmoved. She called this confusion, but in truth, it was mourning, because everything she did was sacred, the silence before she spoke, the breath held between eye contact, the ritual slowness of touch, the unspoken invitations folded into her posture. She does not know she is doing this. It is ancient. The body remembers what the culture erased. When you did not respond, she did not feel ignored. She felt exposed. The ritual only works with witness. The sacred only becomes real when someone else believes. And when you remained untouched by it, not dismissive, just still, she questioned if the ritual was ever real at all. She begins to unravel in secret. You'll see her eyes dim slightly after each sacred act that lands nowhere. She will laugh more at her own jokes, trying to prove they were meant to be light. She will touch you, then retreat, then touch again, not out of uncertainty, but as a priestess trying to adjust the incense, the chant, the vibration, anything to make the magic work again. But you are not hers to move. You do not break in the places she expects. And this makes her feel powerless, not because you dominate, but because you don't even react. She could pour honey down her throat, kneel before you in vulnerability, cry without words, and still you remain whole. She begins to doubt the spell. If her tenderness cannot summon your surrender, what does that say about the altar she's built? She does not want control. She wants confirmation. She wants her rituals to bear fruit. She wants the sacred dance to shape the world through you. But you do not dance. You watch. This is worse than rejection. Rejection is personal. This is mythic silence, the kind that makes a woman believe she never had power at all. You may adore her, you may be present, honest, kind, but you do not kneel, you do not melt, you do not forget yourself in her fire. And so the ritual collapses inward. She keeps performing it, out of rhythm, out of desperation, until it becomes mimicry, a woman going through the motions of devotion in a room that refuses to become sacred. You do not insult her, you do not leave. You simply do not transform when she opens the veil. And that's what she needed most to see you change. Not because she wants to alter you, but because transformation confirms the spell worked. She watches your face for signs of shift, the way your eyes hold hers, the pause in your breath, the ache beneath your silence. When none appear, she begins to doubt herself. Am I not powerful? Am I not sacred? Am I not woman enough to stir this man? And slowly, her tears arrive not as sadness, but as entropy. The ritual has failed. The witness did not cross the veil, and so she stands alone in a temple made of longing, her hands still warm from an offering that turned to ash. She might say, "You never open up." She might whisper, "I feel like I'm the only one trying." She might ask, "Are you really here with me?" But what she means is, I performed the sacred, and the gods stayed silent. Because the ritual, this dance of the feminine, is not conscious. It is soul deep programming. She was never taught it. She remembered it. From lifetimes, from myth, from the dreams of the womb. She performs love the way the moon pulls tides, not with intention, but inevitability. And when her tides do not move you, she begins to fear she is no longer lunar, that she is barren water, that she is rhythm without resonance. And so she begins to resent you, not for who you are, but for what you did not reflect. You did not become the hero. You did not fall to your knees. You did not shatter in the glow of her surrender. You remained yourself unmoved by myth, still in the face of seduction, whole in the arms of worship. She does not want to punish you. She wants to believe again. But belief needs magic, and magic needs movement. And you have not moved, not because you are cold, but because you are complete, not because you resist, but because you do not need salvation. And so, her deepest pain arrives not rejection, but the collapse of meaning. She cries because the spell didn't work. She cries because her power, ancient, feminine, holy, did not stir the earth inside you. And this means she must face what no woman wants to face, that the ritual must be real, even without a witness, that the sacred must remain sacred, even when no one bows, that her essence is not proven by your trembling, but by her unwavering devotion to the myth, even when it echoes back silence. But she is not ready, and so she blames you softly, then blames herself harder, then says nothing and lets the temple fall into dust. You will wake one day and find her distant, though nothing happened. She will say she doesn't know why. She will say she just feels disconnected, but inside her, the altar lies cold. And yet, she still dreams of you, not because of who you were, but because of who you refuse to become. The unfallen man, the untouched sacred, the witness who would not kneel. She dances one last time alone in the dark, her feet remembering a rhythm the earth no longer answers. The candles flicker, but the flame does not rise. She looks toward the doorway, not to see if you're there, but to confirm that no one came. There is no closing chant, no return of light, only her breath still warm in a temple that never opened, The mirror remains clean. The water remains still. The gods remain silent. She does not cry this time, but something in her folds away, not with rage, not with blame, just the soft grief of a myth that was never met. And in that silence, she becomes someone else, but you will never know who.